answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
We are the Mad Men of Masculinity.
Your home for healthy masculinity. We're just real men having real conversations for you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right. That's right. Hey, if you don't know, now you know. I am Kirk M. Samuels.
And I am Jason B. Kendrick.
And we are the Mad Men of Masculinity, baby.
That's right. We're just real men having real conversations for you. And sorry about the delay. I don't know what's up with his side, but there's always a delay.
Real lag time issues going on here, man. Looks like we got some interweb issues going on with this thing today, man. I don't know what the deal is.
Trying to bring us down. They don't want us talking. They don't want us having real man talk. They just trying to bring us down.
Telling you, man, this high speed internet ain't so high speed sometimes, but that's all right. We're gonna do what we do, man. We will not be denied. We will not be deterred.
That's right. So since we didn't really have a topic, and I was like, maybe we should do something fun. Since last time we kind of went deep, and I couldn't come up with anything. I asked other people, and they came up with okay ideas, but I didn't see how we can make them funny. And then this dude over here is like, I got a question for you, but I'm not going to ask you until we get on the air. I don't like those kind of questions. I don't like being put on the spot. What is this question?
Hey, man, it's no way, man. Those kind of questions are good, man. For everybody that doesn't know, so we're on KLDC 1220 AM in the Mile High City every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. and Wednesday evenings at 6 p.m. And we let you in behind the curtain a little bit. We record those shows on Mondays, and then we come back later on in the week, and those are an hour. And we come back later on in the week, and we just shoot the breeze, man. We shoot the breeze for a short period of time, and so man, I figured, I was like, I don't know what made this question pop into my head earlier today, but the question I have, and this is one of those questions to make you say, kind of things. First of all, I played a lot of golf last weekend. It was fantastic.
Yep.
But anyhow, the question is, if Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos allowed you to get into their time machine, because they got a time machine, we just don't know it yet, or they probably keep it a secret. But if they let you get into their time machine and go back to when you were 15 years old, all right, whatever year that was, I can't do the math, I forgot. But if they let you go back to when you were 15 years old, and somehow you could walk into your basement, which is probably where you were when you were 15, and have a conversation with your 15-year-old self, what kind of things would you tell your 15-year-old self?
Like me personally? Huh.
Yeah. You talking to little JBK.
Yeah. Well, see, I was 15. I was like 1990. I was living in Germany. I think honestly, knowing what I know now, I would have been like, dude, start doing some personal development, start reading, start doing some mind hacks, learn about neurology and neuroplasticity, and learn how to become the best version of yourself you can be. And then maybe I would explain that what I've learned as far as my upbringing and what was lacking and what needed to be focused on, so that maybe at that age I can start focusing on it to become the better version at a much earlier age and become a much more stable, healthy, rock star man. But I don't know, man. That would be tough, because I'm thinking about when I was 15, I was only really thinking about two things, and skateboarding and girls. So I don't even know if I could hear that. That's why I'm curious about that. And what kind of parallel timeline would I create if I went back and had that conversation? That would be really interesting to see what would be created out of something like that. 'Cause that's interesting. What would you do? What would you tell your 15-year-old self, man?
Well, I think first of all, I would tell myself put that thing down. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure at 15, I would have, at any random moment, it would have been awkward. I would have said, "Hey, man, put that down, man. You've had enough of that."
You need to buy
I
stock in
think
Ocean.
I would give myself a couple of Super. Yeah, so I would give myself a couple Super Bowl winners from sometime here in the 2000s. Um, and I would give you some guaranteed locks of like, dude, now, but here's what I need you to pick. I need you to put it all on, whatever. When this guy Patrick Mahomes comes, put it all on him in the Super Bowl. That kind of thing. And then, I think I would tell myself, a lot of just kind of pretty real things. And, I would tell myself, you know what, man, believe it or not, sex ain't as important as you think it is. That's one of the things I would tell myself. Sex ain't as important as you think it is.
Yeah, but see, at 15, you ain't gonna hear that. That's gonna be something you just can't hear because you'd be like, but that's all I can think about. I'm 15-year-old dude with all the testosterone and all the hormones flowing. Like that's what I was thinking. I was like, I wonder if I went back and tried to do, the Back to the Future thing and try to help myself out. Like, what would I even be able to hear that, or to just be like complete freak out, or just because I mean a lot of times when you go on the theories of time travel and changing the past, there's a lot of nuances and outcomes that you don't even see. It's like, how would we do that successfully? I wonder. It froze up. We got to fix your internet too.
I would have to convince myself that it was me.
Hmm.
So I would have to like tell myself some stuff that only I knew, like where I hid the VHS tapes. um, where I would have to tell myself, just where I hid some other stuff that we ain't gonna talk about here.
Mm.
But I'd have to convince myself, and when I convince myself, then I'd have to be like, dude, check it out.
Mm.
And then like I said, I would start off with a couple of Super Bowl picks, and and then I would talk about like girls and stuff, man, and just like sex, man. I was so consumed about all that, and that just ruined my life, man. But then at the same time,
Mm.
it's I look back and it's like, man, if I'd changed too much, then then I wouldn't be me now. You know what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
it's like a lot of the failure dictated or had something to do with who I am now and where I am now in life. So I don't know, man. But I was thinking about that earlier. Like, first of all, if I met myself, how would I convince myself that it was me? And then what would I tell
Mhm.
myself? And then what would I tell myself in relationship to the fact that I want a lot of things to change, or what would I want to change versus what I would not, and allow myself to still fail those same failures. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it comes kind of comes down to that question, like the devil you know versus devil you don't. You don't. I would go back and probably talk about some stocks or some things that were going to blow up that would make me more financially successful, and then hopefully convince them that reading Tony Robbins back then or doing something like that would be a good thing. But I don't know how that would split out. Like, what other problems would that cause? Because I mean, to
Mhm.
get real esoteric about it, what if we chose? I mean, like in my first two books, that was pretty much the premise. What if you chose to have those parents, to have those experiences as an eternal spiritual being, because you wanted to experience this, you wanted to learn and grow from this, you wanted to have this experience that we had, and I can. I always joke about it. I say about myself, I was probably pretty big headed, being like, I can handle all of that. Let me do all that. Let me fill up my plate. I can do all that. And I'm gonna come out on top. And then I got here, forgot everything, and went, why did I choose all that? I don't even know. So yeah, it's an interesting question. Like, what would I say to my 15-year-old self? And then what? Hmm, stay away from that girl. Maybe don't do that. But what if that? What if that? I mean, that's the thing. It's like, what if that's what the whole purpose of this life was to be like? Hey, I wanted to have this experience. I wanted to learn and grow from this experience. I wanted to isolate myself and have these different experiences, have the parents and the family I had because I wanted to create a different awareness around my connection with source or myself or whatever it is. Yeah, it's an interesting question. It's like I think sometimes if you really sat down and like had a real deep kind of philosophical conversation about going back and changing your past, I don't know. I'm not even sure I would, honestly. Although I would like to go back to being 15, 16, living in Germany again. That was the best time of my life. That was amazing.
Well, and so that therein lies the question of, on one hand, you could go back and you could save yourself from not going through some stuff. Like, and if I'd have told my younger self about my first ex-wife, you know, and be like, dude, trust me on this one. But then it's like, but then I wouldn't have my oldest two daughters, I mean, and then, but and so on and so forth. So it's like, if you could go back and tell yourself some stuff, A, would you or would you not? And then B, like, what could happen? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, at what point do we accept kind of where we are and everything that made us this, or versus like going back and saying, all right, I wish I didn't go through that. So I'm gonna try to keep myself from having to ever experience that. So I wonder if there are some things that maybe you could keep yourself from going through, but still wouldn't change the whole outcome of life, or not, or like is everything, I don't know, man. I mean, it's kind of a tricky question. I think I would definitely give myself some Super Bowl winners. I would definitely give myself the opportunity to get a guaranteed lock on at least 3 Super Bowls. But I wouldn't do it until like, sometime here in the 2000s or whatever, when I would actually have some money to bet. Because if I told myself who was going to win 5, it doesn't matter. I ain't got no money. So I would wait till I had some money, but I would definitely give myself a couple of Super Bowl winners, and then and then I don't know, what if you could sneak a Powerball ticket into your pocket and take it back? Would you give yourself a Powerball ticket?
I was just thinking that. I was like, knowing what I know now and thinking about myself at 15, I mean, I would be interested to see what I would do if I like could sneak myself a Powerball ticket or something like that, or a bunch of money. But then again, it's like, money makes you more who you are. And at 15, I don't know that I would have made it to 21 if I had millions of dollars, especially back then and where I was living. I don't know.
But I mean, like, what if you could give yourself this week's winning Powerball ticket, but way back then? So in other words, like, you knew here in the first week back then, there wasn't even a Powerball, but still, it's like I could give myself a ticket in the future, like now. But then again, it goes back to the butterfly thing. Like, then what would that change? I don't know.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I know if I gave myself the winning numbers for Powerball at 15 and I couldn't use it until I was in my 40s, I'd have lost that thing. Maybe I'd had to have it tattooed on my skin or something. It'd be like memento, like a reminder or something like that. I have my own little, serial code numbers on my arm or something like that. But yeah, I think it's one of those things like if you could go back and change things, and I mean, even when you get into quantum physics and a lot of the parallel realities and the unlimited or infinite dimension theory, those like every choice you make or did make at some point that kind of branches off, and I'm like, it gets real heady. But it's like, what would I change back then? And I think some things I might go back and try to have some conversations, maybe impart some knowledge. But then of course, I remember myself at 15. I wasn't listening to nobody. So would I listen to myself? But maybe I'd go back and try to impart that knowledge, try to save myself some time or some heartache. But then again, like you said, those are things that kind of made us who we are now. So I don't know. Maybe I would go back and try to improve my relationship with my father, try to be more proactive that way, or try to improve my relationship in the family dynamic, maybe be more proactive that way, so it'd be better now. But yeah, I don't know. It's one of those kind of mind bending questions, like what would you change, and then what would be the repercussions of the things you did change that you aren't even aware of.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, man, this is just kind of the random stuff I think about anyway when I'm driving or when I'm sitting there. But and then the other, so what about this? Would you tell yourself what year certain people close to you were going to die?
Mm. I don't know that I would be specific. I might say maybe be like an age range, like 60, 65, something like that, and I don't know, because would that might actually, inspire you if you did know. But then of course then you get into the paradox theory. If you did say that and then you made some changes or you changed your relationship, then maybe that person wouldn't pass away at that time. Maybe they live longer. So yeah, it's where it gets really interesting. It's like I don't know what ripples will come from those different decisions, but it would be interesting to go back and maybe even just to go back and like watch yourself at that time and remember how passionate, energetic, full of life you were, and just kind of try to get uh recharged from that. Be like, oh, I remember the sky's the limit, the world's my oyster, and I was just ready for life back then instead of being in our 40s and 50s going, man, I'm a little tired right now. Can I get a nap?
Mm. Yeah, I was thinking about that too in terms of uh of course, like a good friend of mine passed away a couple weeks ago and different things like that. And I was thinking if I could go back to when I was 15 and be like, okay, you know, dad's gonna die in 1996, all
Mhm.
right, granny's gonna die in 2023, and so on and so forth, things like that. And then it's like, well, then do you treat yeah, then do you make an effort to connect with them more, to reach out to them more, to
Mhm.
do you make a different effort in terms of those relationships, in terms of all of these different things, in terms of other people in your life? I don't know.
Yeah, it's I know I would have liked to improve a lot of relationships and if I had the awareness, but then of course, I mean, how much can you impart to your 15-year-old self that you would actually pay attention to and like, make changes? I know I would probably say be more questioning, learn more about your parents, get more in depth with them in the family. Um, yeah, and I don't know, but then of course I could just think about myself at 15, like would I listen and how would that change things? But it's an interesting question that I would probably in my mind now at my age probably say I don't know that I would go back and change too much, just because of I don't know what those changes would have made. I mean, I don't. It might have been for the better, it might have been for the worse, but then of course, like anything else, like you say, if you got the sports atlas like Back to the Future, and you go start making bets. Well, how's that going to change things? Is that going to make it better, make it worse? I don't know. It's an interesting question, but I think I would probably be more proactive in my family, be more proactive with some friends, especially those that if I had an awareness of how close we were going to be, or if we was going to lose somebody. Um, yeah, I probably would have focused, been like, "Hey, dude, you need to focus more on your friendships and your family because that's what's really important." Because I mean, we were talking about after your grandmother's eulogy, talking about the things that are truly important. I mean, I would love to impart that to like my 15-year-old self. Like, here's what's really important in life. It's not the things you're focused on or the things you're being told. Family, friends, spending time together, community, love and connection, intimacy. Those are the important things, not money and sex and girls and sports and chasing chasing dreams that are just material. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's why I say I would have to convince myself that it was me because I I definitely wasn't trusting, especially of men. I wasn't I definitely back then I wasn't open to really men being in my life, especially from like a positive mentor kind of
Mhm.
perspective. So to be able to take advice from a guy, I would have to convince myself that it was me talking to myself. But then even in that, yeah, I mean, and then to your point, even still, would you listen?
Yeah.
I kind of try to do that now with my son. He's where I was kind of 30 years ago. Definitely in terms of age, but even just the stage of life and that sort of thing. And and it's always kind of a dance of how much do I press in and be like, dude,
Mhm.
get this, like, this right here versus letting him make some mistakes and letting him, whatever, stumble, fall, all that kind of stuff. It's kind of a fine line. And so then when I take that back to even myself, and that's why I say like 15, because 15 is kind of, you're just getting into some kind of responsibility. I mean, I got my license at 16.
Mhm.
So, at 15, at 15, I had lost my virginity. And I mean, that was kind of a weird situation even in itself. But so many different things, man, happened like right around that age that I was kind of in a space, man. And I would really have to convince myself that it was me. And I would have to find a way to convince myself to take the advice that I would give me. And so, yeah, it's kind of a tough is to me, it's kind of a tough question to answer. It's like, how much or what would I
Mhm.
try to download? Especially if you only had like 30 minutes or something like that.
Right.
I'm not talking like a long time, but like you got time for one semi conversation. And it's like, okay, how do you convince yourself it's you? How do you say, hey, this is important? And then, would you change anything? And if you could, would you? And all
Mhm.
this other kind of stuff, man. It's just, it's one of those things, man. It's like it's a tough thing to think of because you gotta think of all the ramifications.
Mhm.
You gotta think of all the domino effects, all of the, the butterfly effects and all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of like, where I'm now, everything is far from perfect, but there are a lot of really good things in my life that wouldn't be in my life if it wasn't for the failures and if it wasn't for the stumbles and if it wasn't for the heartache and heartbreak and the tears. And I
Mhm.
wouldn't have the relationship I have now if it wasn't for being on the side of my bed brokenhearted, thinking, I could understand how people die from broken heart. But if it wasn't for that experience, I wouldn't have this. And so
Yep.
it's kind of a fine line, man, of how much would we avoid versus how much do we accept the things that happen to us, um, and where they've gotten us to.
Yeah, I think, I was just thinking while you're talking, I'm not sure I want to have see the reaction of my 15-year-old self to my older self. I don't know that I want to hear
Mm,
that, what happened to you, why you got fat, all that stuff, because kids are rude. I might just
mhm,
bypass my 15-year-old self, go straight to my parents at that age and be like, hey,
mm,
I'm coming back and I want to tell you what I've seen and what I'm experiencing, and maybe talk to them about how they can make small changes and things and create a better relationship. Because maybe they're adults, maybe they could take that better. At
mm,
15, I don't know that I would listen to anybody. And like you said, I'd have to convince myself it's me, and hopefully not freak myself out. But I think, yeah, I might even bypass my 15-year-old self and go talk to the family and be like, hey, this is what I see in the future, and this is what I'm experiencing, and here's some things we can do to shift it so that there's better connection or better relationship, or maybe I have a better life. But it's like you said, it's one of those tough questions, but I think it is like kind of a fun mind game, like a fun question to ask you, like, what would I change? And then if I
mm,
change that, what would that mean? And what would that mean? And how would that affect this? And how would that affect that? Like, what if that, first little 6-year-old girlfriend that, you know, had the pregnancy scare, what if I had a kid back then? How would that change things? And what would that be like? And, looking at all those different things, it's really interesting. I think it's probably good to have these kind of fantasies or theories or thought processes, because in the end you might get back to appreciating what you do have a lot more. Because if you go down the rabbit hole, because you always hear people say, oh, if I had $1 million, I'd da da da. Well, you don't really know. You get $1 million, you usually the more money makes you more of yourself. And if you're not free within yourself and healthy, then you might how many lottery winners we see kill themselves in 3 years that are broke because they went partied too much. So I think, yeah, this kind of theological mind game might be a good thing to help you more appreciate where you are and what you have now. Because if you did go back, what would that mean? And how would that change things? And where would you end up being? Can you even extrapolate that far enough out to go, well, if I change this at 15, what would that mean at 40 or 50? It's an interesting question. I like it though. It's something that kind of brain teaser.
Yeah. Well, because I rewind the clock. And I joked about it earlier, but I mean, if I had not gotten with my first wife, if we were not married, I would be a Coast Guard pilot. First of all, if I was a Coast Guard pilot, I mean, because that would have happened. That did not happen because of situation with the marriage, etc. So first of all, if I was a Coast Guard pilot, like what could have, where that could have gone and blah blah blah. But if that whole career didn't fall apart, I wouldn't have moved to Colorado. And even when that first marriage fell apart, the job that I had in Colorado here was where I met my second wife. And so I would not have met her because I would not have even been in Colorado. And if I wouldn't have met my second wife, then none of my daughters would have been born, and then my son wouldn't have been adopted. And so, if he hadn't have been adopted, who knows where he'd be right now? He wouldn't be, probably in the military or doing what he's doing. And what if he goes out and does something great, saves somebody's life, wins a Medal of Honor, all this other kind of stuff? And it's like, but I can trace all of that back to if I would have just warned myself not to marry her, then all of the other stuff wouldn't have ever even happened. And then what, and so, you can trace it back to a lot of stuff. And that's even to now. So, even if I project forward 10 years from now, when I'm 60, and then I'd have that many more if thens to carry out. I mean, man, it's kind of interesting, man. And I wouldn't have the option to go back and talk to my parents. My father was in a mental hospital, like literally incarcerated in a mental hospital. And then my mom, she was doing the best she could to raise two boys, in and around the murder capital of the world, and, keep us out of gangs and crime and all that kind of stuff. And so, in a lot of ways, she wasn't maybe as available as she could have been because of all of that stuff. And so she wouldn't have been, I can't say that I could have sat down with her and say, hey, this is me, 30 or 40 years from now, blah, blah, blah. Like she'd have been like, whatever, man. So yeah, I mean, but either way, when you mesh all of that together, man, it just brings up some interesting stuff, man. Like just in terms of, and I'll finish on this, but just in terms of life, man, like at some point, when you think about something like that, then you got to ask, man, where I am now, would I change any of that? And what would I change and how it would change? And if I did change, then what would that mean or not mean for my life now? And what could that mean for mine and other lives in the future? And that's important stuff.
Yeah, I think if there was one thing I would change, I would have told myself to ask more questions, research more, and definitely apply to the academy and try to become a pilot. It's one of the things I look at now. I'm like, if I had just made that one shift, as a young, dumb teenager, I didn't ask any questions. I didn't research things. And so I just assumed I wouldn't be accepted. And went until after I actually enlisted and learned some more, where it was like, oh, well, my step grandfather and two step uncles, they were both academy grads and pilots. And, my dad's a private pilot and all these different things. Like maybe if I'd asked more questions and been a little more forthright and been like, I really want to be a pilot, I just made all these assumptions. And so, yeah, that might be one thing I would go back and change. Be like, hey, apply to the academy, talk to your grandpa and uncles, talk to your dad, and make them actually talk you through the process and stuff. Because I know with my dad, he might have been tired that day. I don't know, I was like 12 or something. And I was like, hey, I want to be a pilot. He went and got this like beginner's pilot manual. It's like a phone book, and dropped it on the table and was like, there, you want to be a pilot? You got to learn all that. And 12 years old, I'm like, I no, that's way too much. I don't want to do that. I would tell myself, yeah, be more persistent, go after what you want. But yeah, that would have changed a whole lot of things. And that, the butterfly effect, the ripples, who knows where I would have been. So yeah,
but then we wouldn't have played golf all last weekend.
Yeah, no, I've been flying. I would have been Quagmire Giggity pilot. Let's go.
There you go, man. There you go.
So yeah, it's an interesting little mind game. It's something to say, but yeah, I mean, maybe if you're sitting on the patio one day and you're just bored having a beer, what if you could go back? What would you change? And then what would that look like? And then who knows? Maybe it'll help you appreciate what you do have.
Right. And these are just random thoughts, random conversations that guys have when they spend a lot of time together on golf courses, and just think about random stuff, man. And this is just what we do.
And let us know how you like just the random conversations, because sometimes we don't have something to talk about. And after Monday night's deep kind of episode, like, let's find something funny to talk about. And then he comes up with this question. So I don't know if it was funny or not, but it was definitely thought provoking.
Mm-hmm. Boom. And so with that, again, holla at your boys, madmenradio.com, KLDC 1220 AM in the Mile High City, home of the NBA champ Denver Nuggets and the the MLB chumps, the Colorado Rockies.
You gotta leave them alone, man.
Hey, man, they need to win a game, dude. Anyhow, that's where we are. Holla at us. Let us know what you think. Hit all the buttons. Help us out with the algorithm. I mean, it ain't gonna cost you nothing. It ain't gonna hurt you. Engage with us. Put a comment. Let us know we're ugly, we're funny, we're stupid, we're fantastic, we're genius, we're ahead of our time. If you want to partner with us on the show, let us know. All those kind of good things. So holla at your boys, man. We wanted to give you a light topic today, man, and just go with the flow.
Yeah, and if you didn't like this topic, drop us a comment. Give us another topic that we can sink our teeth into, that we can jump into. I know I asked a few people and they gave us some topics, but I was like, I don't know how I can make that funny. I know. I think it was Alex said something about on the first date, either something about giving if you can't stay off your social media, give each other the phones. And I'm like, I don't know if I can. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's like, well, that's how I think. I'm like, yeah, that's okay. But anyway,
yeah. Check this out. I put it in. Man, I did up like some estate planning documents, and I put in a letter of like all my final wishes and all that kind of stuff. I put for my cell phone, don't even go in my cell phone. Just throw it away. I said,
burn it.
I said, here's where the insurance paperwork is. Here's where this is. Here's where that is. Here's the password to my computer. But my cell phone, just throw it away. Like you don't want that smoke. You don't want to know what's behind that curtain, man. You don't want to pull that rock back. Trust me.
Well, and that's that's another rabbit hole we can run down. That's a whole nother topic. But yeah, it's like that would take too much time to explain all the messages and all the jokes and all the innuendos and things. So just stay off of people's phones, man.
Yeah, no doubt. So, well, right on. Well, with that, we're gonna holler at all y'all later. We love every single one of y'all, and again, we do this for each other because we like to. This is what we do. We spend a lot of time together. We just have random conversation, but we just had a random conversation, have a real talk just for you, even when we're not trying to change the whole world. And so, again, we love each and every one of y'all, Mad Men Mafia. We are out.